What do you mean Mark's going to be creative director? I'm the one who saved this publishing house? My voice trembled, echoing through the newly renovated office, its sleek, minimalist design, one I'd personally approved after countless meetings. My father, Arthur, owner of Keystone Publishing, gave me that familiar, condescending look, a punch to the gut. "My dear Eleanor," he began, in that patronizing tone he'd used since I was a child, "your cousin Mark just has a more aggressive flair for business. You're too methodical, too detail-oriented." Just then, Mark strolled in, hands in his pockets of designer jeans, sporting that smug grin I'd known my whole life. "Hey, Ellie, no hard feelings, right? Someone's got to handle the day-to-day, the paperwork, while I focus on the big picture. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 48, and I never imagined that after dedicating my life to the family business, I'd find myself in this humiliating position. I gave up a promising career in New York City as editor-in-chief of a renowned magazine to come back to our small New England town and stop my grandfather's legacy from going bankrupt. The irony? I was the only one with actual publishing experience. Mark? He'd bounced from one innovative project to another, never holding down anything real. And the worst part is, they plan to announce his promotion at this afternoon's all-hands meeting. The same meeting where I was supposed to present record-breaking quarterly results, a direct outcome of my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. I can feel the eyes of the staff on me, especially Mrs. Gable, our most senior copy editor, a local legend. They all know who really saved Keystone. But like me, they're forced to swallow this charade. To understand this madness, I need to go back a bit. Keystone Publishing was founded by my grandfather in 1968, a visionary passionate about American literature. I grew up amidst stacks of manuscripts, the smell of fresh ink, and the sound of printing presses. While other girls played with dolls, I was helping with cataloging and listening to my grandfather talk about the importance of every word. Keystone was my universe. Mark, my cousin, 4 years younger, and my aunt's son, never cared. While I was studying English literature and dreaming of discovering new talents, he was party hopping, finding himself, as my aunt, Arthur's sister, liked to say. My father and aunt never seemed bothered by his lack of direction. "He's a free spirit, needs his space," they'd justify. Meanwhile, I was building my career in New York City, fighting for every rung on the ladder, from editorial assistant to editor-in-chief. Every promotion I earned was met with, "That's nice, dear, but when are you coming home? Aren't you thinking of settling down?" It was never enough. Until one year, my father called me in tears. Keystone was on the brink of financial collapse, with mounting debts and disastrous management after the retirement of the manager my grandfather had trained. I didn't hesitate. I quit my job, sold my apartment in New York, and used all my savings to come back and try to save my grandfather's dream. Arriving back in our town, I found Keystone in chaos. Neglected authors, poorly drafted contracts, no digital presence, and a tattered reputation. I worked day and night renegotiating with printers, scouting new authors, digitizing the backlist, and creating a contemporary fiction imprint that quickly gained traction. I used my contacts to get reviews in major newspapers and organize literary events that put Keystone back on the map. The transformation was remarkable. The publishing house, once a sinking ship, was sailing in profitable waters again. We launched bestsellers, won awards. Every detail, from paper choice to cover design, was conceived to enchant the reader. But now, watching Mark be anointed creative director, I realize none of that mattered to my father or aunt.
The worst part is Mark has already started with his brilliant insights. Last week, he decided to cancel the publication of an anthology of regional poets I had carefully curated, claiming poetry doesn't sell. When I showed him the sales figures for similar collections and the prestige it would bring the house, he just chuckled and said, "Ellie, numbers are just numbers. We need something with more oomph." This morning, the ultimate absurdity. He tried to suspend the contract of a highly acclaimed Black author, claiming the theme of her new book was too niche. I managed to reverse the decision, but the author's embarrassment over the phone cut me to the core. I tried to reason with my father and aunt. I brought spreadsheets, emails from satisfied authors, news clippings about our awards. My father just stared into his coffee cup, while my aunt patted my hand and said, "Eleanor, dear, you need to give Mark a chance. He has such modern ideas." It was like a bucket of cold water. On the drive home, desolate, I passed the old Harrison building, a traditional family in town who, years ago, had a small artisanal print shop, Aurora Press. The place had been closed for years, with a faded for sale sign out front. I pulled over. My mind started racing. The building was huge, with a charming inner courtyard, perfect for events, and plenty of space for a modern publishing house and a small bookstore cafe. It needed a lot of work, of course, but I knew exactly what to do. I sat there in my car for almost an hour, looking at that sign, remembering every time I'd been ignored, every suggestion dismissed, every achievement minimized. Something inside me snapped, or maybe finally clicked into place. I called the real estate agent right there. The heirs wanted a quick sale. With my remaining savings and a good credit history, I could make it happen. By the time I got home, I'd already scheduled a viewing for the next morning. For the first time in months, I felt a new energy and excitement. I wouldn't watch Mark destroy what my grandfather and I had built. I would create something new, something entirely mine. Let them see what they lost when they chose him over me. The following months were a whirlwind. I threw myself into transforming the old building. While Mark was promoting sparsely attended literary happy hours at Keystone, I was amidst contractors and architects, choosing every tile, every light fixture, every detail of my new publishing house and bookstore cafe. I named it Counterpoint Press, a name that reflected my intention to offer an alternative, a new perspective. News traveled fast in our small town. Some called me resentful for challenging my own family. Others, especially authors and professionals who knew my track record at Keystone, quietly supported me. My father and aunt tried to dissuade me with emotional blackmail. "How can you do this to your cousin, to your grandfather's memory?" my aunt would question during our increasingly rare family gatherings. I just smiled and changed the subject. Meanwhile, Mark's mismanagement was taking its toll on Keystone. Reviews of his new releases were terrible. Authors complained about a lack of professionalism, delays, and tacky cover designs. 3 of the main authors I had brought to the house requested to terminate their contracts within the first month of Mark's management. I heard through the grapevine that they had to drastically slash prices on existing stock just to generate some cash flow. Counterpoint's grand opening was exactly 6 months after that fateful meeting. I'll never forget my family's faces when they walked in. My aunt's forced smile barely hiding her shock, my father's wide eyes taking in the crowded space, and Mark's poorly concealed anger. The local paper was there, covering the event, interviewing people about the town's new cultural hotspot. "You're trying to destroy us," Mark hissed when he cornered me near the cafe counter. "This is a personal attack." I just smiled and replied, "No, Mark, this is me succeeding in spite of you all." If you're already loving Eleanor's comeback, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single detail of this journey. The contrast between the two publishing houses couldn't have been starker. While Keystone struggled with basic copy editing and distribution problems, Counterpoint was making waves with its bold titles, vibrant cultural events, and impeccable service. Every idea I had dreamed of implementing at the family's press but had been shot down was now a reality here. From the curated book club to the mentorship program for new authors, everything was exactly as I had envisioned. But success brought its own challenges. Other bookstores started copying our event model. Some paper suppliers, old partners of Keystone, began making my purchases difficult under veiled pressure. My aunt, with her wide social circle in town, ensured that some longtime family friends suddenly stopped accepting my invitations for coffee. I even lost my seat on the organizing committee for the town's literary fair. They claimed conflict of interest. But I wasn't going to let small-town politics derail everything I had built. When local suppliers created problems, I found better ones in Boston and New York. When the literary fair excluded me, I organized my own independent festival at Counterpoint, which was a resounding success. Every obstacle only pushed me to be more creative, more determined. Then came the biggest test of all. My father and aunt showed up at my office at Counterpoint one morning, visibly worried. The bank was threatening to call in Keystone's loans. Mark's incompetence had finally driven the publishing house to the brink. They wanted me to come back. Not as director, of course, but to guide Mark, to put things in order. "We're family, Eleanor," my aunt pleaded, her eyes welling up. "You can't just let your grandfather's publishing house die." I looked at them both, sitting across from me in the office I had designed and earned myself, and felt a strange calm. "I offered to help over a year ago," I replied. "You chose Mark. Now you have to live with the consequences of that choice." My father tried a different approach. "Think of your grandfather's legacy," he said quietly. "This publishing house has been in our family for generations." "And I tried to preserve that legacy," I retorted. "You were the ones who handed it to someone who treats it like his personal ATM." The gossip in town worsened after that. I was the ungrateful daughter, the bitter niece, the woman who would turn her back on her own family out of sheer spite. Some days, I confess, those comments hurt. But every morning, walking into Counterpoint, seeing my vision materialized, I knew I had made the right choice. My team became my new family. Many were former Keystone employees who had jumped ship, tired of Mark's chaotic management. They understood that what I was building there wasn't about revenge. It was about creating something meaningful, something we could all be proud of. The turning point came during the National Book Awards. Counterpoint Press was nominated for Emerging Publisher of the Year, and Keystone, once a constant presence, was noticeably absent from any category. I was in the audience, surrounded by my team, when they announced our win. As I walked to the stage, I saw my father and aunt at the back of the room. They had shown up unannounced, probably expecting, out of habit, to support the family publishing house. The look on their faces said everything. My aunt was fighting back tears, and my father looked like he'd aged 10 years. Mark wasn't there. For months, he'd been avoiding industry events, claiming they were rigged. But everyone in that room knew what this moment meant. The student had surpassed a master. The too detail-oriented daughter had built something better than the family legacy they had refused to entrust to her. In my acceptance speech, I thanked my team, our authors, and even mentioned Keystone, where I first learned to love books. The uncomfortable shifting in the audience told me the jab had landed. But it was the conversation afterward that really changed everything. A renowned editor from a major newspaper's culture section approached me for an interview. As we talked about Counterpoint's success, my father and aunt hovered nearby, clearly listening. They heard every word as I described my journey, including how being passed over at Keystone had motivated me to build something of my own. Sometimes the best success stories come from being underestimated, I said, loud enough for them to hear. That night, the editor told me Counterpoint would be featured in the next Sunday edition as the new force in American publishing. The same issue would carry a piece on traditional publishers struggling to adapt, using Keystone as the prime negative example. When the article came out, it was like a bomb in our small town. Everyone who had whispered about my spite had to swallow the truth. I had built something extraordinary while Keystone was sinking, not because of me, but because of their own bad decisions. Do stories like this inspire you? Then don't waste any time. Subscribe to the channel now for more breathtaking turnarounds. Looking back, it's hard not to feel a mix of emotions. Part of me still resents the way my father and aunt treated me, how they dismissed everything I did as if it were nothing. But another part, perhaps the larger part, feels free. I'm living my life on my terms, not waiting for anyone else's validation. When I walk into Counterpoint every morning, I'm reminded of what I built with my own two hands. The vibrant bookstore cafe, with readers browsing books, authors engaged in lively discussions, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the scent of new books. It's everything I ever wanted Keystone to be, and seeing it thrive fills me with a deep sense of pride. My team at Counterpoint has become my family in a way I never expected. Many of them, like Mrs. Gable and young graphic designer Leo, are former Keystone employees who left because they saw the same lack of leadership I did. They've been instrumental to Counterpoint's success, and their loyalty humbles me. Mrs. Gable often jokes that she finally feels her experience and ideas are valued, and I know exactly how she feels. Outside of work, I've started reconnecting with old friends. For years, I was so focused on trying to prove my worth to my family that I let important relationships slide. Now, I'm making time for get-togethers, for short trips, rebuilding those connections. Some people in town who initially criticized my decision to compete with Keystone have even come around, admitting they admire what I've accomplished. I've also started to find my place in the community again. Hosting events at Counterpoint has helped me reestablish old bonds and even create new ones. Last month, we held a charity reading for the local public library, and it was a huge success. Seeing people come together for a good cause reminded me why I wanted to work with books in the first place, to create spaces that bring joy, knowledge, and comfort. But not everything is perfect. There are moments, especially on quiet evenings, when I think about my father, my aunt, and Mark. As much as they've hurt me, I wish things could be different. I've caught myself wondering if they ever truly understood the sacrifices I made to save my grandfather's legacy. Still, I've realized that their approval isn't something I need anymore. My success, my happiness, they're mine, and no one can take them away. For so long, I lived in the shadow of their expectations, but now I'm finally standing in my own light. About 3 weeks after the National Book Awards, my father and aunt reached out again. They asked me over for dinner, just the three of us. I hesitated, but decided to go. I wanted to hear what they had to say, though I wasn't holding my breath for a sincere apology. When I arrived at their house, the atmosphere was tense. My aunt greeted me with a nervous smile, and my father avoided eye contact, fiddling with his watch as he always did when uncomfortable. Over dinner, they started with small talk, the weather, the latest town news. I knew they were building up to something. Finally, my father cleared his throat and said, "Eleanor, we wanted to say we're proud of what you've accomplished." My aunt quickly added, "We know we haven't always shown it, but we do recognize how much work you've put in. Counterpoint is remarkable." I wanted to feel happy about their words, but they landed flat. It felt like too little, too late. I just nodded and waited for what was coming, and it came. "Mark's been struggling," my aunt began. "Keystone isn't doing well. He's in over his head. We were wondering if you could maybe guide him, help us get things back on track?" For a moment, I said nothing. I let their words hang in the air as I looked at them. My aunt, her perfectly manicured nails gripping her wine glass a little too tightly, and my father, who seemed to be studying the tablecloth as if it held all the answers. I offered to help 2 years ago, I finally said, my voice calm but firm. I gave up my life in New York to save Keystone. You chose to put Mark in charge, knowing he wasn't ready, knowing I had the experience to make it succeed. You didn't want my leadership then, and now that everything has fallen apart, you're asking me to step in? I'm sorry, but I can't do that. My aunt opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. I can offer advice, if you want it. I can recommend strategies, suppliers, even training programs. But I'm not coming back to fix what Mark has broken. That's not my responsibility anymore. They didn't know what to say. My father finally muttered something about understanding my position, but the disappointment on his face was clear. My aunt looked like she wanted to argue more, but for once, she didn't push it. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. Setting those boundaries wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I was no longer bending over backward for them or cleaning up Mark's messes. I was choosing myself, my happiness, and my future. In the following weeks, I noticed a shift in how I carried myself. Saying no to my family gave me the confidence to enforce boundaries elsewhere. I stopped over-explaining. Counterpoint hit new milestones, and Keystone, I later heard, hired a professional consultant. Mark and I barely spoke, and that was fine. Counterpoint was a reflection of my resilience, vision, and independence, and as it flourished, so did I. Standing at the entrance of Counterpoint one sunny morning, I watched the light stream through the tall windows, bathing the space I had created. A family walked by, laughing, while one of my staff handed a customer a stack of books. In that moment, I realized how far I'd come. For years, I'd measured my worth by their approval, but now I didn't need it. What I'd built wasn't just a publishing house. It was a testament to my ability to thrive. The journey had been hard, but it had freed me. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. At the Regional Publishing Awards, the highlight was the Literary Personality of the Year award. When my name was announced, emotion overwhelmed me. Accepting the trophy, I glanced at my father and aunt. He gave a small nod, her eyes were moist. Not an apology, but an acknowledgement. Something I no longer expected, but appreciated. Later, I celebrated with my team, the people who helped me get there. I felt truly free. Success wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself I was capable, deserving, and enough. And raising a glass with my team, I knew I'd finally found peace.
Were you moved by Eleanor's journey and how she turned every obstacle into a stepping stone for success? Then hit that like button and tell us in the comments, from what city or country are you watching this story of triumph? And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Revenge of Victoria channel and ring that bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming inspiring tales of justice.